Indeed, you are called a Jew and rest on the law, and make your boast in God, and know his will, and approve the things that are excellent, being instructed out of the law, and are confident that you yourself are a guide to the blind, a light to those who are in darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, having the form of knowledge and truth in law. You therefore, who teach another, do you not teach yourself?
Hey, can we stop it? You know, he's kind of sarcastic here. Also, you're that deep now. You're the teacher, right? You lead babes into truth. You're deep. You know God. Oh, he's trying to help them see you don't know God like you think you know God. And really, that's the context of what he talks about from verse 2. In verse 1 and 2, you see him use this phrase, judge not. The Greek word judge, I won't go into it. If you want to check the Greek, it's Greek word 2919. It means to condemn, to punish, to exert a verdict. That's what judge means. And we have to be careful here because we get this in church all the time. Oh, you're judging me. I'm about to mess up your theology a little bit here. You know God actually tells us to judge. Do you know that? Let's read 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 5. 1 Corinthians chapter 5. Verse 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12. That's someone, if you got to read it. 1 Corinthians 5:12.
Chris will.
What? Okay. It isn't my responsibility to judge outsiders, but it certainly is your job to judge those inside the church who are sinning in these ways.
And it's interesting because the backdrop of this is he just talked about sexual immorality. And he says, folks outside the church, we don't judge them. But if you're in the church, if you profess to be a Christian, we judge acts. Then I'll back up here and you see 1 Corinthians 4. Let's see something start from verse 5. And I'll show you something about judgment here. 1 Corinthians 4:5.
Therefore judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal the counsels of the hearts. Then each one's praise will come from God.
You know, our judicial system is a reflection of the justice of God. What happens in a court of law? The judge gives the defendant an opportunity to present his case, tell what happened, bring witnesses to validate his credibility and to present the case. It's interesting because in the American judicial system, you have the jury who listen to the arguments for and the arguments against. Then based on what they've heard, 10 independent, randomly chosen people have the right to now say, I believe on this, that person is guilty. And if all 10 agree, then they find the defendant guilty. Do you know why sometimes it takes 2 months, 3 months, some cases 2 years of presenting evidence? Do you know why? Because the scripture says, judge nothing before its time. In the justice system of God, I have to have had all the opportunity to know all the circumstances, all the motives, all the pressures, all the things that made an input into the action that was made. That is why you and I are not competent enough to judge people when they do things. We'll take the homosexual. You and I are not competent enough to make a verdict on them, especially if they are Christians that are struggling. Even if they're non-Christians. For non-Christians, the scripture says, really, we don't judge them. Why? Because we always come with God's heart that wants to reach the lost and help. We don't judge because we don't have all the information and all the facts of what was going on in the person's heart and all the circumstances and situations around that. That is why God is the only one competent enough to judge, because he knows the person's past and the future perfectly. He knows all the circumstances and the pressures around what made the person do what he did when he did the thing under those circumstances. You and I don't. That reason alone is why we don't judge people. We judge actions, but we don't judge people. Scripture teaches us to judge action, but we don't judge people. And what is Paul dealing with here? He's dealing with the mindset of the typical Jew who in his mind, I'm a Jew, I have a relationship with God. Not necessarily, I do right, I do wrong, I'm a Jew. I'm circumcised. I have Jewish blood running in my veins. I go to the synagogue, so I'm right. They're non-Christians, so they're going to hell. Verdict. That's the difference between judging an action and judging a person. When you judge the action, what you're saying is, if I, Charles Ikutiminu, am unfaithful to my wife sexually, that is sin. The issue is not who did it or where was it done. The issue is that act of infidelity is sin. But when it comes to what led the person to do it, I'm not competent enough to stand as judge, like we say, and jury over the person. Why? One, I don't even have the opportunity to know all the facts. A large part of what he deals with in chapter 2 is this mindset that says, because maybe I've been in Christianity longer, or because I hang around church folk longer, or because I speak enough Christianese and can throw around redemption and sanctification and holiness, that kind of postures me to make me feel better than anybody else. That is what chapter 2 deals with.